The old Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town. Dark, brooding, it was a sentinel from another time. The wind howled through the eaves like a mournful cry. Inside, dust motes danced in the pale moonlight, filtering through grimy windows. The air was heavy with the smell of decay. Musty furniture draped in white sheets loomed like phantoms. Each footstep echoed in the silence, a stark reminder of the emptiness that permeated every corner. A chill ran down my spine. Something wasn't right here. The floorboards creaked under my weight. A low groan resonated through the house. It was the sound of ages, the weight of forgotten memories. I felt a presence unseen but palpable. My heart pounded against my ribs. I wandered through the darkened corridors. The only light came from the moon, casting long, distorted shadows. The silence was broken only by the sound of my own breathing. Then I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible. I stopped, holding my breath, straining to hear. The whisper came again, closer this time. It seemed to come from the walls themselves. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I quickened my pace, eager to escape the growing unease. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. It swirled around me, a chorus of disembodied voices. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a warning, filled with fear and urgency. I had to get out of this house. I entered a room at the end of the hall. The air grew instantly colder, raising goosebumps on my arms. A deep shadow clung to the far corner, impenetrable even by the moonlight. I felt a presence there, watching me. I stepped back, my heart pounding. The temperature dropped again, the air growing thick and oppressive. I could feel my breath frosting in front of me. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I was not alone. The shadow in the corner shifted. It seemed to lengthen, reaching out towards me with unseen fingers. A wave of terror washed over me. I stumbled back, my hand instinctively reaching for the doorknob. It wouldn't turn. I was trapped. I later learned about the house's dark history. A family had been murdered there, brutally slain in their sleep. Their spirits, unable to find peace, remained trapped within the walls. The whispers were their tormented voices, forever seeking solace. The cold spots marked the locations of their demise, the lingering chill a testament to the violence that had occurred. The shadows were their restless spirits, condemned to roam the halls for eternity. The house was a prison, both for the living and the dead. I felt a pang of sympathy for the trapped souls. Their pain was palpable, their anguish echoing through the years. They were not evil, just lost and tormented. I had to help them find peace, even if it meant confronting my own fears. As I stood in the icy grip of the haunted room, my eyes were drawn to a large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. Its surface was cloudy, obscured by years of dust and neglect. I stepped closer, wiping away the grime with my sleeve. And then I saw her. A woman in a long white gown, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes were wide with terror, her mouth frozen in a silent scream. She was trapped just as I was. Her image flickered in the mirror, a ghostly echo of a life cut short. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. The apparition in the mirror reached out, her spectral fingers scraping against the glass. Her silent plea for help sent shivers down my spine. I had to find a way to break the curse that held her captive. Desperate for answers, I decided to hold a séance. I gathered candles and an old Ouija board, placing them on the dusty floor. As the flames flickered, casting long shadows on the walls, I felt a surge of trepidation. The air grew thick with anticipation. My fingers trembled as they rested on the planchette. Slowly, it began to move, gliding across the board with an eerie life of its own. Letters appeared, forming words, then sentences. The spirits were communicating. Fear turned to fascination. The messages were fragmented, filled with sorrow and anger. The spirits spoke of betrayal, of a life unjustly taken. They sought revenge, their rage palpable in the air. I realized with a growing sense of dread that I had stumbled into something far more sinister than I could have imagined. A cold hand grasped my shoulder. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. Standing behind me was the woman from the mirror. Her eyes, once filled with terror, now blazed with a cold fury. She was no longer a helpless victim. She raised her hand and I felt an icy blast against my skin. It was like being plunged into the depths of winter, my breath catching in my throat. Fear threatened to consume me, but I stood my ground. I had to show her I meant no harm. Her grip tightened on my shoulder, her touch like frostbite. I cried out, more in surprise than pain. Her rage was palpable, a tangible force that threatened to overwhelm me. I had unleashed something ancient and evil, and now it was out for revenge. Panic surged through me. I had to escape. I turned and ran, her laughter echoing behind me. The house seemed to conspire against me, the corridors twisting and turning, leading me further into its depths. I was trapped in a labyrinth of my own fear. Doors slammed shut before I could reach them. The temperature plummeted, the air growing thick with the stench of decay. I could hear the whisperings growing louder, urging me on, herding me towards my doom. I was running out of time. The floorboards beneath my feet seemed to buckle and sway, as if the house itself was alive, breathing, and I was caught in its suffocating embrace. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, taunting me, herding me towards my inevitable fate. I stumbled into a room, my back against the wall, gasping for air. The ghostly woman stood before me, her features twisted in a mask of hatred. Her eyes, once filled with sadness, now blazed with an unholy light. She was no longer the frightened victim. "You will pay!" she hissed, her voice like ice shards scraping against stone. "You will suffer as I have suffered." Her rage was palpable, a living thing that filled the room, suffocating me. I knew then that escape was impossible. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. But instead of pain, I felt a strange sense of peace. The whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. I opened my eyes to find the room empty. Had it all been a hallucination? I awoke in a hospital bed, the smell of antiseptic stinging my nostrils. My head throbbed and my vision was blurry. I tried to piece together what had happened, but my mind was a foggy mess. Doctors surrounded me, their expressions a mixture of concern and relief. They spoke in hushed tones, their words barely registering in my dazed state. I caught snippets of their conversation. Found unconscious, abandoned house, delirious. They told me I had been found unconscious in the abandoned house, delirious and mumbling about ghosts. The memories started to flood back, the eerie silence, the cold air, the feeling of being watched. They dismissed my story as a product of my fevered imagination. They said the fever must have caused hallucinations, that my mind had played tricks on me. But I knew the truth. I had seen things, felt things that were too real to be mere figments of my imagination. The haunted house, the ghostly whispers, the woman in the mirror. It was all real. I remembered her eyes, cold and piercing, staring back at me from the mirror. Her voice, a whisper that sent chills down my spine. And as I looked out the window at the storm raging outside, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The lightning illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The storm seemed to mirror the turmoil within me. Each thunderclap echoed the chaos in my mind. Each flash of lightning a reminder of the horrors I had witnessed. Had I escaped the clutches of the haunted house, or had it simply released me, knowing I would forever be haunted by the horrors I had witnessed? The visions of that night replayed in my mind, a never-ending nightmare. As the wind howled outside, I realized with a shudder that some doors are best left unopened, some secrets better left buried. The house had let me go, but it had left its mark on me. I would never be the same again, forever changed by the darkness I had encountered.